Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, it's DMG, welcome back to Blitz, and today we are going to have a very educational video, this time on the topic of dancing. Now I was trying to do a flutter aiming video, but after trying to do it for such a long time, I figured there are so many other topics that need to be covered before I even get into that. Flutter aiming is the result and kind of a resulting step and part of the learning process that you get when you learn this. This is dancing. Dancing is the first thing that you need to learn how to do. Now, what I've done actually in terms of the YouTube playlist is that I have removed the intermediate topics and advanced selections playlists. That means, for me at least, I don't think you need to be a certain win rate to watch a certain video, so really go at your own pace, but I do think that this is a video that everyone should watch, especially for the, I would say, high 50s crowd, but that being said, anyone can watch this video. I think that it would help anybody's game if you do not know it or have never heard of it. Now, what I plan on doing with the new playlist I've created, called For Aspiring Magicians, FAM for short, will be to go over techniques, strategies, and mindsets that I use before I go into games. This could either be things like dancing, or it could be strategies that are not map reviews, but more tactical, like team reading kinds of things. Anyways, this is what I've been working on, and higher quality videos, like I said before, that's what we're producing on this channel. Let's get into it. So dancing is the process of rocking your tank back and forth behind cover. Most 40 to 50% crowd will not even use cover. So I'd probably say around the 53-54% you start using cover, right, and poking out safely. But this is really the next step to simply put, take your win rate to the next level. If you want to get into the 60s or take your 60s into the mid 60s and you're not doing this, this is the first step of what is going to get you there. Now, by rocking your tank back and forth, you simply mitigate damage. More importantly, you'll be able to get more shots off. Now, back to the mitigating damage part, it is super important to rock your tank back and forth. People who just sit on mounds like this and do nothing will have their cupolas sniped or maybe even have their drive wheels hit. It's not very good to see that happen. So when you rock your tank back and forth, your weak points become harder to hit, and shots that where you may have taken damage, you may not necessarily take that damage anymore. It may bounce off a stronger part of your turret that someone wasn't planning on aiming for, and because you moved, you'll actually bounce that shell instead of trying to fight them head on and just simply poking without doing any dance whatsoever. Now, as for doing more damage, most people, and I'm going to tell you from experience, guys and gals and non-binary pals, that they will try and shoot you. Now, if you're moving back and forth, they will most likely try and stop and hit you. Most noobs in public games will stop, try and aim at a weak point, and penetrate you. However, that's not going to happen because you're rocking back and forth, and because when they go stationary and you're still moving and having your gun locked on them, it's quite dangerous. I do this all the time on maps like Himmelsdorf, as you see here, or Canyon, and I'm going to tell you right now, there's many more maps where this is very applicable. I'm not going to explain them all, but regardless, they are there, and I encourage you to look for them. You can actually check out a lot of my mastery videos, and you're going to see me doing BS like this to people on all kinds of different maps. So watch some of those and see if you can locate or at least recognize when I'm doing this dancing technique. So my process for this is going to be to try and explain it to you in steps. The reason why I keep showing you this same little clip and then freeze frame over and over again is because this is how it looks outside of the scope. Now, this is not necessarily what you want to be doing when you're in the scope, because you don't want to be doing this outside the scope. That is because the way, and I say this in my experience, I use auto aim. So when using auto aim, you don't want to accidentally have your gun drag on an object and then fire at the object. You want to stay in scope to give the most reliable shots possible while doing the most damage and mitigating the most damage by hiding the profile of your tank. So what you're looking at now is how you should be doing it. you should be in the scope and simply poking the reticle over the mound or whatever object that you are using as cover for your dance. Now, the reason why I am doing this is because by simply staying in sniper mode and poking over the ridge, I am able to tighten my dance and see just how much I can poke the gun over to get the shot off without exposing any extra part of my tank. Now, that allows me to get a shot at anyone sitting in that corner on Himmelsdorf right there, which I'm sure we've all seen people go before, right? They always side scrape off that corner, or destroyers like to sit there. Now, those people will try and stop and aim at you. You do this once, they're going to try and stop and aim at you. You can do it again to them. It really is almost like being able to do damage while luring them to sit out in the open or sit in an exposed position while you farm them for 2 or 3 shots. B, I mitigate damage because people who will try and sit there and shoot at you are going to try and hurt you bad. Now, by doing this, I am not showing any extra part of my tank that I shouldn't be showing. So, by doing this, I technically mitigate the damage, mitigate the amount of exposure that I am giving to the enemy, and it will save my skin in many situations. Now, to throw another wrench into the mix, what you're going to see on screen next is something that I call erratic dancing. Now, I want to clarify that as erratic, not erotic. Now, erratic dancing is different than normal dancing in the sense that it is less rhythmic. Now, consider normal dancing moving forward 2 meters, back 2 meters, forward 2 meters, back 2 meters. It's very rhythmic and sequential. Now, erratic dancing may be moving forward 2 meters, back 1 meter, and then forward another 2 meters to then poke the ridge and get the shot off. Now, even my erratic dancing movements are sequenced and rhythmic in a certain way, but it's a very hard to get pattern. It's not as easily readable and patternable, if that's a word, or it's not as telegraphed. It doesn't look as easy to read is what I'm trying to say. Now, good players will be able to feel the rhythm of a dance and hit your cupolas still. I have done this to multiple people who have tried to mimic what I do. After I penetrate them once or twice, they'll try and wiggle and dance as well, and it just doesn't come out as clean. Because even if they try it, they're not really thinking about it. They're saying, oh, I just gotta, shake my tank back and forth, and I'll bounce shells. Well, not necessarily. If you have weak points on your turret, consider things like a Type 61. Well, that has weak points everywhere. But a Type 61, a Glacial 112, an IS-5, tanks like that can be penetrated, or anything with a cupola. Think about the Type 59 Patton or the Chieftain. Things that are easily pennable cupolas. If you try and wiggle rhythmically, you will get penetrated, as people will just feel it and then aim in the right spot and penetrate you. Not to say that all players know how to do this, but I would say most 60+ players that you play against will be able to read a basic rhythm dance and penetrate. I would say competent 60%ers, not the seal clubbing tier 3s, right? Anyways, you're seeing me perform an erratic dance, and I hope this will encourage you to, after you get the simple normal dancing movement, the rhythmic dancing, to develop your own erratic dance sequences to be able to fight against very high-skilled opponents, or I would say the noobs that get lucky and manage to hit you in a rhythmic sequence. Right now, you are seeing me do this in the scope, which again is how you should be doing any dancing sequence. Always do this in the scope in order to maximize the amount of shots you're getting and, of course, minimize the amount of profile that you're exposing. Now, here's an example of me doing it a little bit more in real time with some sequential and erratic dancing movements. Now, I know I said I was going to do a flutter aiming video, but this really is the first step, and you can see a little bit of that in this video. I've tried my hardest not to do the flutter aiming while I'm doing this, as I don't want to really confuse anyone and make it seem like I'm teaching way too much, way too fast. But I do hope this does help you learn a technique that I use frequently in order to stop damage from coming in and continue putting out damage, which does increase your win rate significantly. Now, How many times on this map have you seen an ISU sit in that exact spot that I am aiming? Or like a Tankenstein, a Tiger P, an E100. Someone side scraping or sitting right on that corner in a tankster. I'm sure you have seen it before. Techniques like this will allow you to get through these situations relatively unscathed. And it's not just Himmelsdorf. I can think of maps like Dynasty's Pearl, or even Vineyards, Rockfield. Those are just a few to name off the bat. Winter Malanovka. I'm sure these spots exist on every map. They just don't come to mind exactly at the moment. I know I probably do this on every map. Even in the open angling like this, it can be helpful to rock back and forth. But of course, as I said, always try and do this around cover. If you're on a flat building, like a building like the one I'm aiming at right now, don't poke out sideways like that. It's not going to be good. You see how I'm always using this small berm, and it is exposing a very small amount of my tank. If you try this off the corner of that building, all you're doing is simply exposing your drive wheel. And yes, you may get a bounce from it because you're rocking back and forth and they may catch a drive wheel or something like that, but it will be far less effective if you just try and do this in the open than if you have cover. Now, I really hope you enjoyed that video on one of the techniques that I use to increase wins. This is something that you need to ingrain in your gameplay if you want to increase your win rate. I'm not going to say that this is the only technique or the only way to do it, but this is just one 71.5%er's way of doing it. So take that for what you will. If you enjoy that content, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. And if you didn't, please leave your constructive criticism in the comment section. I appreciate the opportunity to share my passion with you today, and I hope to see you next time.